Tonight, we travel back in time, not hundreds of years, not thousands, but tens of thousands of years into the distant past, long before cities, before kingdoms, before written language. We return to a Europe that looks almost unrecognizable, a land of endless snowfields, of silent forests buried beneath frost, of vast glaciers stretching across the northern horizon. This was Europe during the last ice age, around 20,000 years ago. Much of the continent lay locked beneath sheets of ice over a kilometer thick. Northern lands we now call Germany. Poland and the British Isles were covered in frozen silence, but this world was not empty. In the southern valleys of France, across the plains of Spain, and within sheltered caves of Italy and the Balkans, small groups of humans lived. They hunted, they gathered, they survived, and above them, mammoths walked slowly through the wind. Tonight we will gently explore this frozen world. We will walk across the tundra, we will sit beside ancient fires. We will watch the slow turning of seasons in a Europe that feels both alien and strangely familiar. So settle in, and let us begin. The frozen continent around 26,000 years ago, Europe entered one of the coldest chapters in its long history. This period is known today as the Last Glacial Maximum. But for the people and animals who lived through it, it was simply the world they knew, a world shaped by ice. Massive glaciers stretched across the northern half of the continent, from what we now call Scandinavia, down through modern Germany and Poland, and across the British Isles. Thick sheets of ice pressed heavily against the land. In some places, the ice was more than a kilometer thick. It did not sparkle or shine. It moved slowly, almost invisibly, like a frozen river, creeping forward over centuries, crushing forests, carving valleys, reshaping rivers. The land beneath it disappeared into silence. Further south, the climate was still harsh, the air was dry. Winds traveled long distances across open plains. Summers were brief and cool, winters were long, stretching endlessly into gray horizons. Snow did not fall gently as we imagine today. It gathered in windswept drifts. It hardened into crusts of ice. It covered the earth in pale stillness. Much of Central Europe was not forest, but tundra. Wide, open land, treeless, grasses and small shrubs clung to frozen soil. In spring, tiny bursts of life emerged quickly. Flowers bloomed low to the ground. Insects appeared for short weeks. Then the cold returned again. Life moved in narrow windows of opportunity. The coastline of Europe looked very different, because so much of the planet's water was locked in glaciers. Sea levels were dramatically lower. The North Sea did not exist as it does today. Instead, there was a vast plain of grassland connecting Britain to mainland Europe. Herds of animals crossed freely, humans followed them. What is now ocean floor was once open land beneath wide skies. Over thousands of years, these landscapes would disappear beneath rising waters. But during the Ice Age, they were pathways of survival. Rivers flowed differently too. Some were blocked by walls of ice. Others were diverted into new channels. Meltwater carved deep valleys as seasons shifted, lakes formed, and vanished. The geography of Europe was restless, never permanent, always shifting under the pressure of climate.
To the south, conditions softened slightly. Regions we now know as southern France, northern Spain, Italy, Greece, and parts of the Balkans became refuges, places where the ice did not fully dominate. These lands still felt cold, but forests survived in patches. Rivers ran more steadily, animals gathered there, and where animals gathered, humans followed. These southern regions became pockets of life in a continent largely subdued by frost. The sky above Ice Age Europe would have felt enormous, clear air, little moisture. On many nights, the stars would burn sharply overhead. Without cities, without artificial light, the darkness would have been complete, only moonlight reflecting off snow, only starlight on frozen ground. Silence carried differently in cold air. Sound traveled farther, the crunch of footsteps, the distant call of animals, the whisper of wind across open plains. And yet, despite the cold, despite the ice, this was not a lifeless world. It was alive in a quieter way, resilient, seasonal, adapted. Grasses bent but returned each spring. Animals grew thick fur, humans learned patience. The Ice Age was not a sudden catastrophe. It was a long rhythm, a slow tightening of climate over thousands of years. Then, small fluctuations, a slightly warmer decade, a slightly harsher century, the glaciers would advance. Then pause, then retreat slightly, breathing, in geological time. If we stood on a high ridge during this period and looked north, we would not see cities or forests. We would see a horizon of white, a vast and moving wall of ice. Cold winds would press against our skin. The air would feel sharp in our lungs and beneath our feet. The ground would be firm, frozen, waiting for spring. For thousands of years, this frozen continent shaped the lives of everything upon it. It dictated where rivers flowed, where animals grazed, where humans could walk. It determined migration routes, shelter locations, the boundaries of survival. The Ice Age did not simply cover Europe in snow. It redesigned it, carved fjords into Norway, deepened valleys in the Alps, smoothed plains across the north. Even today, long after the ice has retreated, its marks remain visible, silent reminders of a colder chapter. And as we imagine this landscape, vast and pale beneath a wide sky, we begin to understand something important. Human history did not begin in comfort. It began in challenge, in adaptation, in landscapes that demanded awareness. The frozen continent was not gentle, but it was formative. It shaped the earliest Europeans, it tested endurance, and it created a world where only the observant and the patient could survive. In the next chapter, we will meet the great animals who walked these open plains, the giants of the ice. The frozen plains of Ice Age Europe were not empty. They moved, they breathed, they carried weight and sound across the tundra. This was the age of giants. Across open grasslands, beneath pale skies, walked the woolly mammoth, massive, slow, deliberate. An adult mammoth could stand over 3 meters tall at the shoulder. Its body was covered in thick, dark fur. Beneath that fur lay a deep layer of fat, protection against relentless cold. Long, curved tusks swept forward from its face. They were not simply weapons, they were tools. With them, mammoths brushed aside snow to uncover buried grasses, they stripped bark from frozen trees. They defended their young. Mammoths rarely walked alone. They moved in family groups, led often by older females. Calves stayed close to their mothers, protected between towering bodies. The herd moved slowly across the plains, always searching for food. In winter, survival required constant motion. In summer, the land briefly softened. Grasses grew thicker, water flowed more freely. But even in warmer months, the air remained cool. The mammoth's world was never truly gentle. When herds moved, the ground trembled faintly, not violently, but enough to be felt by those who watched from a distance, and there were always watchers. Nearby grazed another powerful creature, the woolly rhinoceros. Stockier than the mammoth, lower to the ground. Its thick hide carried long hair, sometimes reddish-brown in color, to horns curved forward from its snout. The larger front horn could grow over a meter long. Unlike mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses were often solitary. They wandered alone or in small numbers. They scraped snow aside with powerful movements of their heads. They fed on grasses and hardy shrubs. When threatened, they did not hesitate. They charged with force and speed. Even large predators kept their distance, and predators there were, moving silently along the edges of herds. Watching, waiting, were cave lions, larger than modern African lions. Longer in body, adapted to cooler climates, they did not roar constantly as movies suggest. Much of their hunting required patience. They followed herds, studied weakness, waited for separation. The tundra did not allow waste. Energy mattered. Every chase had to count. Sometimes, beneath the pale light of dawn or dusk, lion shapes could be seen against distant hills. Low, intent, their breath rising in the cold air. But the mammoth herds were rarely easy targets. Young calves were guarded. Adults formed defensive circles. When danger approached, tusks outward, massive bodies aligned. In many cases, predators turned away. The giants were not easily defeated. Across these same plains wandered immense herds of reindeer, thousands moving together during seasonal migrations. Their hooves pressed patterns into frozen soil. They traveled great distances, following ancient routes carved into memory for both predators and humans. Reindeer were essential, reliable, seasonal, predictable. They provided meat, high bone movement. Their migrations shaped the rhythm of Ice Age life. Another striking presence on the tundra was the giant deer, sometimes called the Irish elk. Despite the name, it ranged far beyond Ireland. Its antlers were extraordinary, spreading nearly for meters, in some males. They were not delicate structures, they were heavy, commanding, carried high above the head like living crowns. During mating season, males clashed antlers with echoing force. The sound carried across open land, deep, resonant, but those enormous antlers required strength to maintain. When climate shifts reduced available nutrients, the giant deer struggled to adapt. Size is impressive, but it demands resources. Horses also roam Ice Age Europe, smaller than many modern breeds, thick-coated, resilient. They grazed in groups, ears alert to distant movement. Their speed allowed them to escape many predators. They were quick to react to changes in wind, quick to sense danger. On open plains, awareness meant survival. This world was not chaotic, it was balanced. Every creature moved within invisible boundaries. Predators did not hunt endlessly, prey did not wander carelessly. Energy was precious, winter punished waste. Summer rewarded preparation. Each species had adapted over thousands of years to this narrow climate window. Thick fur, compact bodies, seasonal migration, fat storage, herd behavior, everything shaped by cold. Imagine standing at a distance, watching a mammoth herd cross a frozen valley. Their breath rises like drifting smoke, snow compresses beneath heavy steps. Calves stumble slightly in deeper drifts, older members move with steady confidence. Behind them, faint trails stretch across white ground. Above them, the sky remains pale and wide. There are no roads, no fences, no borders, only land. And life moving across it, but the Ice Age giants were not eternal. They existed within a fragile balance when climate shifts accelerated. When human hunting grew more efficient, when landscapes transformed, even the largest animals could not always adapt. For thousands of years, mammoths thrived, but slowly, their numbers declined. The warming climate changed vegetation. Grasslands shifted into forests. Migration routes altered. Human presence expanded. By around 4,000 years ago, the last isolated mammoth populations vanished. The great tusks no longer swept snow aside. The tundra grew quieter. The woolly rhinoceros disappeared as well. The giant deer faded from the landscape. Cave lions vanished from European plains. Their bones remained buried beneath soil and sediment, frozen for millennia, preserved in permafrost. Discovered thousands of years later by curious hands, yet during their time, they defined the Ice Age. They were not background details. They were architects of the ecosystem. Their grazing shaped plant growth, their migration fertilized soil. Their presence influenced predator behavior, and humans watched them carefully, studied their movement, learned their patterns, respected their power. For early Europeans, survival often depended on understanding these giants. When to approach, when to avoid, when to follow, and when to wait. The tundra during this period was alive with motion. But it was not loud in the modern sense. There were no engines, no distant cities, no artificial noise, only wind, footsteps, animal calls, the occasional clash of antlers, the rumble of shifting weight across frozen ground. Sound carried differently in cold air. It felt clearer, more deliberate. Every movement meant something, and as we picture this world, we see that the Ice Age was not only a story of ice. It was a story of endurance, of massive bodies adapted to narrow conditions, of ecosystems tuned carefully to climate, of giants that ruled the plains for thousands of years. Until the slow turning of temperature and time reshaped everything. In the next chapter, we will turn our attention to the humans who lived among these giants, who watched them from a distance, who depended on them, and who, in quiet ways, outlasted them all. Long before cities, before roads, before written language shaped memory, Europe belonged to small groups of humans who lived quietly beneath open skies. Among the earliest were the Neanderthal. For more than 300,000 years, they survived in climates that shifted between cool and brutally cold. They were not primitive caricatures, they were adapted. Their bodies were powerful and compact. Broad chests helped warm icy air before it reached their lungs, shorter limbs conserved heat. Their muscles were strong, built for close encounters with large animals. They understood this continent deeply. They knew where flint could be found, in riverbeds. They knew which valleys offered shelter from winter winds. They knew how snow drifted against certain rock faces. Knowledge was survival, and knowledge was passed carefully from one generation to the next. Neanderthal groups were small, often between 10 and 25 individuals. Large enough for protection, small enough to move efficiently. They did not build cities. They did not build monuments. Their world was mobility, seasonal camps, caves, rock overhangs. Temporary shelters made from wood, hide, and bone. The land was not something they owned. It was something they moved through. Inside caves, evidence of their lives still remains, stone tools shaped with careful strikes, cut marks on animal bones, charcoal from ancient fires. They were skilled tool makers, using a technique known today as the Levallois method. They shaped stone cores into precise flakes. Sharp edges for cutting meat, points for hunting, scrapers for cleaning hides. Each tool required planning, each strike of stone required intention. This was not random shaping, it was learned craft. At night, fires burned in cave interiors. Flames reflected against limestone walls, light flickered across faces. Outside, wind pressed against the entrance. But inside, warmth gathered, food was roasted, bones were cracked for marrow. Stories, though unrecorded, were likely shared. We do not know their words. Though we know they communicated, they hunted cooperatively. They cared for injured individuals. Some skeletons show healed fractures, meaning someone protected and supported them during recovery. Compassion existed here, even in the cold. Then, around 45,000 years ago, another group entered Europe, Homo sapiens. They arrived gradually, moving westward from the Near East, following animal herds, following opportunity. They were not dramatically different in appearance, but there were subtle advantages, more flexible social networks, more diverse toolkits, longer distance trade, and eventually, more symbolic expression. For thousands of years, Neanderthals and Homo sapiens shared this continent. They occupied overlapping territories. They drank from the same rivers, they hunted the same herds. Genetic evidence tells us they even interbred. Modern humans today still carry small traces of Neanderthal DNA, a quiet reminder of that shared history. But eventually, Neanderthal populations declined. Their numbers were never large. Climate shifts added pressure. Competition for resources increased, and by around 40,000 years ago, they vanished from the archaeological record. Not in a dramatic final battle, not in a single catastrophic moment, but slowly, quietly, like snow melting in spring. Now Homo sapiens stood alone in Europe, but alone did not mean comfortable. Life was still hard, still uncertain, still deeply tied to seasons. Imagine a small group of early humans traveling across southern France during late winter. The ground is partially frozen, snow lingers in shaded valleys. They carry tools wrapped in hides, children walk close to adults, every member contributes, the group moves slowly, scanning the horizon for signs of herd movement, for smoke from distant lightning strikes, for tracks pressed into soil. Movement is careful, energy must be conserved. When they choose a camp location, it is strategic. Near water, near wood, with some natural protection from wind. Temporary shelters may be constructed using wooden frames covered with animal hides. Inside, bedding of grasses and fur creates insulation from frozen ground. Fire is central. Without it, survival becomes nearly impossible. It provides warmth, protection from predators. Like during long winter nights, the skill of maintaining fire was not optional, it was foundational. Food preparation was deliberate. Large animals required coordination to hunt. Smaller game required patience. Nothing was wasted. Meat was dried or smoked when possible. Fat was treasured. Bones were shaped into tools and needles. Hides became clothing. Clothing during the Ice Age was essential. Layered fur garments protected against freezing wind. Simple stitching using bone needles and sinew thread held pieces together. These were not crude wrappings, they were carefully crafted survival systems. As Homo sapiens settled deeper into Europe, something else began to appear: art. Inside caves such as those found in what is now France and Spain, walls were painted with animals, horses, bison, mammoths, handprints pressed into stone. These images were not decoration in the modern sense. They carried meaning, perhaps spiritual, perhaps symbolic, perhaps practical. We cannot know fully, but we know this: the human mind was expanding its expression. Even in harsh climates, even while survival required constant effort, there was still room for imagination. Social bonds strengthened survival chances. Groups likely shared information with neighboring bands. Trade networks extended surprisingly far. Shells from coastal regions appear in inland archaeological sites, meaning communication and exchange traveled across great distances. This connectivity may have offered resilience. If one region faced food scarcity, knowledge of another region could mean survival. Children learned by observation, by imitation, by participation. There were no written instructions, no formal schools, only shared experience. A young child might watch an elder shape flint, listen carefully to the rhythm of stone striking stone, feel the weight of tools in small hands. Learning was direct, immediate, tied to consequence. And at night, beneath immense ice age skies, they would rest, the fire crackling low, stars burning above, the Milky Way stretching clearly across darkness. There were no artificial lights, no distant hum of machines, only wind moving across open plains. Only the occasional distant call of animals. In those moments, the boundary between human and landscape felt thin. They were not separate from nature, they were woven into it, dependent upon it, responsive to it. The Ice Age shaped their bodies, shaped their habits, shaped their migration patterns. They followed reindeer herds, tracked mammoth movement, adjusted to seasonal shifts in plant growth. They were observers first, hunters second. Survival required deep, environmental awareness. Over generations, small innovations accumulated. Improved spear points, atlatls for throwing projectiles farther. More refined clothing, better shelter construction. Not sudden leaps, but gradual refinement. Adaptation layered upon adaptation, and slowly, as climate warmed and glaciers retreated, these early Europeans would begin transitioning toward new ways of life. Forests expanded, large herd animals declined. Human groups adjusted again. Eventually, thousands of years later, agriculture would appear, villages would form, civilizations would rise, but those distant futures were still unimaginable. For now, there was only the present. The next hunt, the next migration, the next winter. The first Europeans did not see themselves as pioneers. They did not imagine their legacy. They lived day by day, season by season, under skies shaped by ice, beside fires built from careful hands, and in surviving, they carried humanity forward into the next chapter of history. Now, let us step away from the vast plains and move closer to a small circle of light. It is night in Ice Age Europe. The temperature has dropped steadily since sunset. Cold settles into the earth. The wind, which moved strongly during the afternoon, has quieted. Above, the sky is clear, dark, endless. A small group of humans has chosen this place carefully. A shallow dip in the land shields them from northern wind. Nearby, a narrow stream flows slowly beneath a thin layer of forming ice. Scattered stones form a rough boundary around their camp. In the center, a fire burns, not large, not wasteful, just enough. The flames move gently, fed by carefully rationed wood. Firewood is precious here, collected during the day, carried across distance, protected from moisture. Each piece placed intentionally, nothing wasted. Sparks rise upward, drifting briefly into darkness before vanishing. Around the fire sit members of the group. Some are awake, some are already resting. They wear layered garments of stitched fur. The inside of the hide still soft, the outer surface thick against wind. The clothing is practical, not decorative. Function is beauty here, warmth is survival. One individual sits slightly apart, carefully sharpening the edge of a stone tool. The sound is soft. Stone brushing against stone, slow, rhythmic, measured. Nearby, a child leans against an elder's side, eyes heavy, listening to the low murmur of voices. Conversation is quiet, energy is conserved at night. There is no need for noise. Beyond the reach of firelight, the tundra stretches outward. Snow reflects faint starlight, low shrubs cast soft shadows. In the distance, the faint outline of hills rests against the horizon. The world feels vast here, but not hostile. Simply indifferent. From far away, A sound carries across the frozen air. Perhaps the distant movement of reindeer, a shifting of hooves against crusted snow, or the deep, muffled rumble of mammoths adjusting their weight. Cold air allows sound to travel clearly. Every nose feels sharper, more defined. The group listens briefly. No alarm, just awareness. Then the quiet returns. The fire cracks gently. A small pop as sap within wood releases. A flicker of orange light dances across stone tools laid neatly beside bedding. Sleeping areas are arranged in a semicircle around the warmth. Layered hides and grasses insulate bodies from frozen ground. People sleep close together. Shared warmth reduces heat loss. Breathing becomes slow, steady. Visible in pale clouds when someone shifts closer to the edge of light. The sky above is breathtaking. Without cities, without artificial glow. The stars feel impossibly bright. The Milky Way stretches in a pale band across darkness. Constellations, though unnamed in this time, are familiar patterns repeated night after night. Generations have looked upward at these same stars. They offer no warmth, but they offer consistency. In a world of shifting climate, the sky remains stable. An elder adjusts position near the fire, careful not to disturb others. The embers glow deeper red now. Wood has burned down to coals. This is the most efficient stage of heat, less flame, more steady warmth. One person rises slowly to another piece of wood. Placed gently, no sudden movement, the fire responds. A brief brightening, then calm again. Inside nearby shelters made of hide and wood frame. The air feels slightly warmer. The entrance faces away from prevailing wind. Design learned through long observation. Snow piled along one side acts as insulation. Even here, architecture exists, not in stone walls or towers, but in understanding of environment. Sleep in the Ice Age is different from modern sleep. There are no sealed rooms, no steady indoor temperature. The body remains lightly alert, ears tuned to unusual sound. Noses sensitive to scent. Fire provides security, but awareness never disappears entirely. This is rest balanced with readiness. The group has eaten earlier in the evening. Strips of roasted meat, perhaps marrow extracted from bones. Fat consumed carefully, it fuels long nights. Tomorrow will require strength again. Migration continues soon, food sources shift. Movement is constant across seasons. But tonight, there is stillness. A faint breeze returns. Soft enough to barely disturb loose snow, it brushes across the outer edge of camp. The fire bends slightly, but does not falter. The group remains calm. This is familiar. Wine is part of the night's rhythm. If we step back further and look down from above, we would see a small glow in vast darkness, just one fragile circle of warmth in an immense frozen world. Around it, miles of tundra. Beyond that, glaciers pressing silently southward. And beneath those stars, a handful of humans keeping fire alive. This is how humanity endured, not through domination, but through persistence. Through careful use of energy, through shared warmth, through attention. Hours pass slowly. The moon rises, casting a silver sheen across snowfields. Shadows stretch longer. The fire lowers again to embers. Breathing remains steady, soft, even. Occasionally someone shifts, pulls for closer, adjusts position. But sleep deepens in this quiet moment. There are no empires, no borders, no written laws. Only survival, only community, only the quiet determination to greet another dawn. And as night reaches its coldest point, just before first light, the sky begins to pale slightly at the horizon. A subtle shift, barely noticeable, but certain. Morning will return. It always does. Soon, someone will wake first, stir embers back into flame, prepare for movement, scan the horizon. But for now, the camp rests. The fire glows softly, the tundra remains still, and the Ice Age night holds its silence.